And do you think there was always this sort of destiny for you to enter into martial arts? Was there a turning point for you, or were you always going down that road? Do you think?
No, actually, I was very far from it until I was about 14, 15. I think until then, I was never took any seriously, never really saw like a clear path as a fighter, taking as as a martial artist. I think it was I always thought it very big in my family, but I never really, before you were a kid, I've never really decided before I want to be a fighter. I want this is what I want. And the turning point was when I'm from Rio de Janeiro, so I went to the south of Brazil to a place called Florianopolis. I had two of my uncles living there, Helion and Crowley, my mom's brothers. So I went to see my uncle Helion to stay with him, like summer holidays. It was summer. I went there for about a month. And then I had my uncle Hollis Gracie was living there with him. And Hollis is, I think, 3 or 4 years older than me. So I was like a kid, 14, 15, yellow belt, chubby, not really training much. And Hollis was already like 17 and like an athlete, purple belt competing. And just staying that time with them, my uncle's like, Roger, you have to train. Like, I was barely training. And it's like, man, you're Greece, you have to train, you have to, get into a diet, man, you're out of shape. You can be a champion. Hollis would be the heavyweight champion, you'd be the middleweight champion, because I wasn't that big back then. And I think just the daily, he had a gym. Like my mom is a Gracie, not my father, even though that my father is a big person in the jiu-jitsu world, a big fighter, one of the best of his generation. But I didn't grow up with, he never had his school. So I didn't grow up with like a father figure taking me to the academy, living like what it is to live through jiu-jitsu. And my father, when my uncle was Hollis, was his teacher. And Hollis died when I was 2 months old. And then my father kind of was very sad and he kind of moved away from jiu-jitsu for many years. So, and that was when I was born. So it took him many, many years for him to get back into it. So during all the time, I had my uncles, cousins, who I used to train with, but not my dad. I never had anyone taking me to the academy, never knew, what it is to live through that. So when I went to see my uncle, suddenly I stay at his house and I used to wake up. I used to go for a run and then have a very light breakfast, eating fruits. We used to go to the academy, train. He used to teach. And then we used to discuss, just some techniques after. I mean, not that I was discussing, I used to listen to them.
Mhm.
And then, we used to train again in the evening, and that was like a daily routine. I just fell in love with that life. Like, living, nature. We used to go to the waterfalls during the day, running, dieting, training. That kind of really inspired me. Like I really had felt like a passion for it. And then when I go back to Rio, I was a changing person. I was like, this is what I want. I moved back to live with him. I was like, I wanna, that this is the place that I'm really motivated to teach, to learn. And he was like, come live with me. So I went back next year. I moved to the south of Brazil, Florianopolis. I live with him and my other uncle, Carly. And I think from that moment on, I was changed.
And do you think that gave you that kind of discipline, some sort of structure that you were craving? How did that help you sort of fall in love with the sport? Was it the kind of the physicality to help you get into shape, but also the kind of emotional development through the sport and learning and growing as you trained?
I think that kind of gave me a direction. Like suddenly I saw what it is, what it means to be a Gracie. That's what I
Mm.
thought, because that's where every uncle and cousin of mine used to do. They all teach. They all had academy, and they all used to train, and they all used to teach and fight. That's the life, the life of a Gracie. And suddenly, when I saw that, I was like, this is amazing. And I mean, I was always a very competitive person, but then I was like, man, I want to be a fighter. Then I was like, then I got inspired by the champions in my family. I'm like, I want to be one of them.